I put myself on my first diet when I was 10 years old, eating for comfort all the time. I was angry, I was grumpy, I was just not happy. I'd lose a little and I'd gain it right back.
You've done a program in the past and it didn't work. Why would you ever go back? So happy Monday. We're going to have a community conversation with Amanda Martin. For those of you that have been in the group, Amanda's been with us on and off for 2 years.
That sounds right.
Years. Yeah. And it's funny because Amanda's story actually goes against everything I ever say. If you've done a program in the past and it didn't work, why would you ever go back? But Amanda's story is a little different because Amanda started with us with a lot of doubts. Amanda's story started with her looking at her husband one day. And Amanda, I tell this story all the time. She looked at her husband one day and she said, "Will you still love me if you're stuck with this version of Amanda?" Amanda had reached a point in her life. She'd been, I think, the heaviest she would ever wear.
Mm-hmm.
And she tried everything in the kitchen sink and she felt completely hopeless. And her husband, being the amazing man that he is, I've met him about a year ago in Vegas, looked at her and said, "Of course I will." And then Amanda stumbled across Nutrition Builds Strength before it was the behemoth that it is now. And she went to him and said, "I found this. I want to try one last time." And she did. So Amanda, why don't you introduce yourself before I get into your story? Tell us a little bit about you before Nutrition Builds Strength, what you do, how old you are, who you are. Just give us a little bit of insight.
And my name's Amanda, 38, mom of 3, and a wife to a first responder. So my family life is delightfully hectic. My kids are 8, 7, and 4.5. I am a full-time speech pathologist at a local charter school after spending a little over 6 years in a children's hospital, which included the pandemic and all of that. I have a long storied history of battling with my weight. I am 6'1", so I'm not small. Even at my thinnest, I have never been small. I think I put myself on my first diet when I was 10 years old. So weight was always something that I was very acutely aware of. And I struggled through most of high school and college with eating disorders. I went through rehabilitation twice. I was in recovery for several years. And then I had a traumatic event in which my daughter and I almost died. And I developed a binge eating disorder as a result because I just was eating for comfort all the time. It just shut off all the noise. And so then in 2020, we went into the pandemic. My newest baby was 6 months old when all of our life went into lockdown, and I bought myself a Peloton. Just needed something to keep me sane. And so I started doing that, and I was feeling pretty good, but I knew that things weren't where I wanted them to be. And then it all kind of came to a head in December of 2020. COVID took my mom. My mom was exactly what you think of when you think of somebody that passes away from COVID. She was in poor health. She had a lot of autoimmune issues. She was overweight. She didn't take care of herself very well. But just in general, her health wasn't great. And so COVID came along and took her. And I just went into this really dark place and I didn't know how to get out of it. And I spent a lot of time that year convincing myself that I was going to do better to honor my mom, but also to be there for my kids. My mom was only 66 years old when she passed away, and my kids were very young. And I thought, I'm in my 30s. I still have time. I can fix this. I still have time. I can take care of me. I started trying all the things that worked before. In your early 20s, when you decide you're going to get fit, you cut carbs or do Weight Watchers, eat 1,200 calories a day. Not only was I barely losing, I was miserable. I was angry. I was grumpy. I was just not happy. I'd lose a little and I'd gain it right back. And I was getting back into some of those binging habits. And I was in a Peloton Facebook group and found Bradley through some of his posts. And I wound up leaving that Facebook group because people attacked the crap out of you and it drove me nuts. But I am kind of the belief that if you can take enough crap and stay standing, you must be onto something. So I thought, I'm going to do a couple consultations, and yours, MBS, was one of them. And after I met with you for the first time, I thought, you know what, like this guy's not here to feed me a line of bull. He's got some strategies. You were talking stuff that made sense to me, scientific stuff that I already knew worked. And I thought this is where I need to be. So I jumped in and I started, and that first year I lost, I think it was a total of like 54 pounds.
I was gonna say around 60.
Yeah. And then we had some financial things happen, and I had to kind of take a step back, and I stopped taking care of myself. My depression got really bad for a while. In the midst of this, I was diagnosed with ADHD.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah. Which at 37, figuring out all of these things you've hated about yourself for your whole life finally have an explanation. But now it's also really overwhelming because you're like, okay, now what do I do? You know, these things you thought you were in control of that you realize you really aren't. And now you got to figure out how to manage that. And so I really let that get the best of me, and I sunk into a pretty deep depression, and I just started gaining the weight back. I stopped working out. I stopped caring what I ate. My Peloton sat untouched for months, even though I love it and it's like therapy to me. I stopped going to therapy also, which was a big issue. And I gained and I gained and I gained, and I watched, sitting in my NBS Facebook group, watched other people having success, watched other people falling and getting back up. Went through a phase where I convinced myself that it was just not going to work for me, that even though the program worked, I wasn't able. And I just got in kind of that thought process. And I can't honestly tell you what brought me out of that. I don't know. But I reached out to you and Jen and Afton. I have a confession. I have not been taking care of myself, and I have gained back most of what I lost. And I feel awful, like physically awful, emotionally awful, mentally awful. And I need to start over. And so I actually went out on a limb. We were in a better place financially, and I purchased a whole year just so I had no excuses.
Second time.
Yeah. Nothing.
You do it exactly the way you should. You go, you know what? If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this all in. And I love that about you.
The thing, like if I purchased my first 12 weeks, I knew I could accomplish something, but I also knew that as the end of that 12 weeks came, I didn't know where I would be mentally. And if I'm not in a good place mentally, it's really easy to say, well, I'll do it later. But whereas having done the whole year, I was able to say, no, I'm committing to an entire 365 days that I'm going to invest in myself. And so I did. And it has not been perfect. Right after I started, we hit holiday time. There was travel involved in that and whatnot. And then we came back, and just recently I have gotten sick. Like I was telling you, I'm on week 2 of battling COVID symptoms. I still can't taste food properly. Everything tastes gross to me. I don't want to eat. I haven't been able to work out in 2 weeks because I have no energy, but I am staying in it. I'm staying connected to Afton. I am still talking to her multiple times a week. She's checking in on me like, hey, where are we at? I noticed you haven't tracked anything. And I'm like, yeah, that's because I'm eating toast and that's it. And she's like, okay, I can understand that. I'm like, I just don't have the energy to track toast. I think phase 1, I lost 14 pounds.
13 or 14 pounds, yeah.
And that is in addition to, I had lost about 10 right before I started. I'm down almost 25 pounds from there, which puts me almost halfway back to where I was, and we're still in the first part of the year. So I certainly can't complain. Despite being sick, feeling more like myself again, I think there was something for me about just knowing that as frustrated as I was with myself, you guys weren't going to look at me and be like, oh God, Amanda, what did you do? You've always said, you know, we're like family. And if I couldn't turn back and be like, hey, I need help, there wasn't really any
then we were
place
full of shit.
else. Yeah. And there really wasn't any place else that I felt like I could have turned. Nobody was invested in me the same way.
I want to go back to a couple of things really quick. You gave me so much, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Amanda, wait. First, you've always been family since day
Yep.
one. You've been family, and we tell everybody that. It's just a matter of, do you actually listen when we say that? And the members that actually listen, they feel that. We're right here. I actually talked about your story. I sent it to you. I was interviewed on a podcast the other week, and I talk about exactly that. And I talk about how there's something different about the way we do things. And you are the prime case study for everything that I typically say is wrong with the nutrition industry and how people go back to things over and over, except for the fact that you can look at your story and go, it's not the program, because you did it for a year and then you did it after. You went on your own and you graduated to macro RD. You did it without the training wheels on. And you acknowledge that, no, it's not the program. I let go of the things and the habits that I've built. But your story says something different. Your story talks about more of finding something that works, that is sustainable, that you believe in. And it's no different than therapy. And I bring up therapy because therapy, there's this point in therapy we all reach, for those of you that have been in therapy, where you go, I don't know if I really need to go anymore. And there is a point for some people where it's like, you know what? I'm not going to go anymore. But you know what you know when you do that? Because finding a good therapist takes a lot of trust. Finding a good therapist takes the amount of time and investment for you to be able to also trust the therapist to be like, yeah, no, it's okay. I think you're right. I don't think you need to come anymore. Or, you know what? Why don't we go to check into once a month? But you also know that with nutrition builds strength, just like with therapy, that when shit hits the fan, you know that you can come back. You don't depend on us to make the things work, because you did it without us after a year. You did it with macro RD, and then you held on to it for a little bit. But you knew that you had a place that you can come back that was safe. You knew that it was a method that worked because it worked, not because of some magical something. You had a place that was safe. And that's something that I feel is so different about our program. And I've talked about it multiple times, but I want to go back. You said something that I don't know if I've ever heard you say. You said you put yourself on your first diet when you were 10. And I actually just posted about this today. I posted about it and I said, the real story doesn't happen until we start to unlearn our behavior.
Yep.
And now when you came over to Nutrition Build Strength, you're young. You're younger than most of the people we work with, but you already had multiple decades under your belt. Almost multiple decades. No, multiple decades.
Yeah.
Under your belt of behavior around food. Tell me a little bit about what that unlearning process looked like, because you've done every diet out there. And it wasn't until you hit rock bottom and you were like, I'm going to try Nutrition Build Strength because something about it feels different. What was that unlearning process like for you? Because that's got to be really hard for most people.
I think the big part for me was changing a lot of my language around food. And this was big for me and something to pass on to my kids too. Like in our house, we don't have good foods and bad foods. I don't believe in cheat days. I think the words we use carry a lot of power. I think that was a big thing for me, was learning that if I ate ice cream, there was a very long time in my life where that would have carried a lot of guilt.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had done one of those 6-week, 20-pound challenges, blah, 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 right after I had my second child. And when we knew that it was not going to work for me, had nothing to do with me not losing weight. What it had to do with, I made myself a protein shake, a chocolate brownie protein shake, literally just protein powder and water. And as I was drinking it, the taste of chocolate and sweets, I felt this visceral guilt, like I shouldn't be eating something like this. And I realized that there was such an unhealthy connection between foods that I viewed as bad and things that I shouldn't eat. And so for me it was changing my language and then also undoing the process of didn't eat what I had planned to eat for breakfast, so I guess the day's shot.
Mm.
Well, it was Monday and Monday was shot, so I guess the week's shot. Well, it's the first week of March and I shot the whole first week, so I might as well start over again in April. You get into that just perpetual all or nothing mindset. And I started looking at it more of, my husband did bring me home a tasty coffee treat and a pastry this morning, and I wasn't planning for that. But you know what? We don't do this every day. We do it every once in a while. And I'm so consistent that I'm not going to derail myself with one meal, even in having lost weight before in my life, because there was a time in my early 20s, I lost 90 pounds, but it was very all or nothing. It was, I was in the gym 2 to 3 hours a day. I was cooking and prepping and tracking religiously every single day, multiple hours. Like that was my second full-time job. And as much as it worked, it wasn't sustainable, especially because that was before I had kids. um
Changes
and
everything.
yeah. And so it took me until I was in NBS to really start to shift my all or nothing mentality into it's what you do all the time, not what you do every once in a while that's going to dictate your outcome.
Yep. Yep. And it's so funny. I love that you said, I don't do cheat meals, because cheat meals, that phrase is something that I used to live and die by. In my 20s, everybody knows, if you guys don't know, if you guys are just here, all our new members, welcome. I was a competitive bodybuilder. I was a competitive power lifter. I lived and died by chicken, broccoli, and cheat meals. Okay. That was my life, chicken, broccoli, and cheat meals. And when we were creating NBS, there was a lot of science that went into it. But the science is the science. It wasn't that we found any new science. Okay. It was, how do we start to communicate the science in a way that is digestible, in a way that's relatable, in a way that is not going to make somebody like Amanda or myself feel guilty about having something that our spouse brings home? How is it going to create something that is not going to use the word cheat meals? Because if you really think about it, that is one of the dumbest phrases that the nutrition industry has coined. And the reason it's stupid is because who are you cheating on with that cheat meal? Are you cheating on enjoying a moment with your children? Are you cheating about making core memories with them? Are you cheating on having a holiday dinner? Are you cheating on, you know what? Food is not just fuel. So I'm going to acknowledge I'm using food to comfort myself right now, or I'm going to use food to celebrate, or I'm using food to have a memory. What are you cheating on with a cheat meal? That is the most ridiculous thing. And I love that you're like, I don't use that phrase anymore, because that is the most valuable testimonial I think I've heard in a long time, where you're not talking about the number on the scale. You're not talking about the amount of inches you lost. You're talking about reframing your mindset around a phrase that inherently makes people feel guilty. Almost not even just feel guilty, a phrase that you have to earn. You have to earn your cheat meal. You have to earn the food. And last time I checked, Amanda, you're not a fucking dog. And excuse my language, but we don't need to earn our food. And with NBS, it's not that you don't have what most people would call a cheat meal. You don't do that. We have something called calorie track days. You have calorie track days on the weekends because it makes sense with most people's schedules. We actually increase your calories because at the end of the day, from day one, Amanda, I didn't know your entire story. I didn't know that you had a eating disorder. I didn't know that from day one. But for you to sign up for another program that would have potentially pushed you back into that state would have been completely detrimental. But you signed up for a program. You listen to how we do things. We do a 5-2 split. We implement just enough structure, but also enough freedom, but not freedom that requires you to earn it. It's just freedom built into the program. That structure and the way we've designed the program took a recovered binge eater and someone with an eating disorder and then made the recovery go to another level, a level that I didn't even know that you did through your time in the program. And I mean, my mouth is on the floor, Amanda. And you talk. Let's go back to your 20s, because a lot of people think, when working with MBS, because we do require a lot of data, and you come from a place just like me, living and dying by chicken, broccoli, and cheat meals, hours in the kids tracking. But you're right. You're in your late 30s. You got 3 kids. You're a speech pathologist. Your husband's a first responder. There is no time for that. Can you talk a little bit about what it's like with everything on your plate and executing everything necessary for you to be successful with MBS?
So I think the big thing for me is, I mean, my kids are old enough now that they're a little bit more independent and I can get some stuff done in the kitchen without them. But it's really easy for me when I am sorting stuff out for the week to say, okay, I'm going to throw some chicken in the crock pot with some seasoning and some salsa, and I'm going to throw these veggies in the air fryer and make a pot of rice. And I can do all of that while I'm sorting stuff out for lunches for my kids. I can do all that while I'm running loads of laundry. My daughter loves to come in and help me in the kitchen. So she'll come in and help me like parse stuff out into containers and whatnot. So I am probably an outlier on this one. We don't eat traditional family dinners in our house. My husband works 24-hour shifts, so he's gone a lot for dinner. And then I have 3 picky eaters who take after their mama as a child. And so we all kind of eat our own dinners, but we're getting to the point now that we're all making our dinners together in the kitchen. So it's given me the opportunity to find things that I enjoy and to share those with my kids and be like, oh, here, you should try this. This is new. I'm trying this. And I get to try new and different things because I do have that freedom in the evenings. That, and Afton's been really great about like, hey, I find myself tending toward meals lately that are a little bit fattier in the evenings. And she's like, okay, where can we carve some fat out of your daytime so that you can enjoy something cheesier or with more oil or fried, whatever it is that I don't fry much. I have an air fryer, but just so I can incorporate that. And she's really, really responsive. I feel really guilty sometimes because I'll message her on like a Saturday night because that's when I finally have a minute to myself. And in my mind, I'm like, it's fine if she doesn't respond to me until Monday during working hours, but she will respond to me in the middle of the night on Saturday. And and I'm like, maybe I should have waited. But I think that's the biggest thing is I get very easily overwhelmed by trying to make changes. I don't have to. I have somebody right there that I can be like, hey, I want to make this change and I don't know how. And she's like, all right, let me play with it. As you know, ADHD, when you have all of those browser tabs open in your mind at the same time, trying to zone in on one to do even simple math, to move my own macros around, can get me to the point where I say, you know what, I'm just going to go take a nap. And so to me, that's probably my biggest help is when I feel like something's not working for me, I don't have to sit down and overwhelm myself trying to figure it out.
Oh, definitely. It's funny. You said you're like, I just want to take a nap. I'm the opposite. I go, what more can I put in my browser? Let me just add more things to the browser. And then it'll be so cluttered that it's totally fine. I want to go back though. You said you don't do traditional family dinners, and as a mother, and I don't know if it was in the MBS community. I don't think it was you that posted it. Actually, I'm almost positive it wasn't you. And this happens. We get this question a lot, and I actually thought about this quite a bit when designing the program the way we did, because we do require a lot of data tracking. And when the program was designed, Kennedy was going to be born, and Kennedy wasn't born yet. But I thought about, I'm going to have a daughter in my life, and I'm a recovered, not food addict. I'm a recovered food problem with food person. Okay. I was so neurotic about food, and I never, with the way society talks about food around women, I never wanted my behavior that took me almost 3 years to unlearn to be passed on to my daughter because I knew she was going to be susceptible just for being a woman in the world. And you talk about, you do track, you do have a daughter, you talk about her being in the kitchen with you. How do you address what mom does when it comes to tracking, weighing food to your kids?
I compartmentalize it. So when we're at home and I'm tracking and I'm weighing, my kids have asked me, like, what are you doing? Why are you putting your food in your phone? Why do you put your food on that scale? And I tell them that I'm working to be the healthiest, strongest version of myself that I can be. And I am still learning what amounts of what foods make my body feel good and what amounts of what foods make my body feel not good. Back in December, right after Christmas, we went on a vacation to visit my brother and his family. And I told Afton, I'm not tracking this week because I didn't want my kids to see me tracking food while on vacation. I wanted them to I want them to understand that this is something I do at home on a consistent basis so that I can be fueling myself with the foods that make me feel my best. But that when we go on vacation, that's for fun and for memories. And if I eat something that makes me not feel my best, well, tough nuggets. But hopefully the things that I'm doing at home are going to help me so that when I'm out, I don't make choices that are going to make me feel blah. And I don't need to be tracking and counting to know that.
Now, from that vacation, I don't know if you remember, but you've spent a lot of time around nutrition build strength now.
Mhm.
And from somebody that has been on both sides of the spectrum when it comes to eating issues, if you remember, when you came back from that vacation, how swayed was your scale? Was it to the point where it was so daunting and massive?
No, honestly, I want to say it was less than a pound up.
And I love to hear that because what that tells me is that the way we design our 5-2 split, because I tell people all the time, we have to implement the structure. Our calorie track days serve multiple purposes. First, it's because we want to make sure that we're developing that healthy relationship with food, because you don't track your macros, you don't follow a meal plan. We actually increase your calories by 200 to 400 extra calories per day. We literally eat anything from cookies to cocktails. We don't care. Just go enjoy. But we still give you a target to hit because we're working on weight loss. But the second purpose that serves is that very slowly over time, you're going to start to learn how to eat intuitively, very slowly, in microbit amounts. And for you to be able to go on vacation for how long?
It was 5 days.
5 days. And come back with zero tracking, eating whatever you ate while you were there, with zero guilt, and only seeing the scale sway a pound. That tells me that it works. That the underlying root, because of course, what are we all working towards? We're all working towards weight loss. Great. That's the number. Lovely. You can go to any Joe Schmo with half a brain and they'll help you lose weight. What is the real thing we're working on? Is that sustainability. And Amanda, that is point in case of what happened. That just hit my heart so incredibly deep. You have no idea. I could talk to you for hours because your story is so incredible. And we might have to do this off of Facebook Live one day and actually just talk a little bit because I have so many more questions. But Amanda, there's something else that you've done. The first time you came to MBS is when you look at our 3 different packages. We have our premium, our silver, and our platinum 365. We have our 12-week, our 24-week, and our 48-week package, really being 50 weeks. And I don't ever shy away from the fact that we are never going to be the cheapest company by any means. I've never shied away from that. Not at all. You're working with a registered dietitian. But the reason we've designed 12, 24, and 48 weeks is for a reason. 12 weeks is because most people, you have to find the confidence within yourself to do it. But we allow you to upgrade before the end of week 6. And over 87% of the people that start at 12 weeks upgrade to a minimum of a 24-week package before the end of week 6. But you came in and you are one of the very few that go, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. Not literally, but I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. And I'm going to do this not for the short term. And if I'm really going to do this, I'm going to go all in. What do you think that has done for you in terms of your success with weight loss, your sustainability before everything hit the fan? Why do you think that has been beneficial for you?
anytime you are, especially as a parent, anytime you are talking about spending any nominal amount on yourself, it's really, really easy to talk yourself out of it. I can think of any number of things that I could do for my children or with my children for that amount of money. And when it comes to myself, I am really good at justifying why I don't deserve to spend money on me. And so when I decided to do the full year, it was because I knew that 12 weeks was great. I was just going to be getting my foot in the door. And then I would have to come to a point where I would have to make that decision to invest in myself again. Circumstances of life ebb and flow so much. And if I'm in a position where I'm not feeling very good about myself or I'm not feeling confident about my progress, I'm more inclined to say, this isn't a good use of my money. I need to be spending that money elsewhere. And I can't look at things objectively in those moments. So I have to take a step back and say, okay, by giving myself the full year, I have now made an investment in myself that I can't ask for my money back. I can't be like, well, change my mind, guys. So I'm going to need a prorated. No, like the investment has been made financially. So now the onus is on me to make that investment of my time and my efforts to justify spending that amount of money on myself. And I think that that's the big thing for me is that there's an added incentive knowing that I could have put that money into any number of things, but I chose to put it into bettering myself for me, for my husband, for my kids, for my family, for any number of people that are affected by the changes in my life. And so I think that's what it was for me. I know some people that probably don't have those same mental struggles that I have, that don't talk themselves out of things quite as easily. But I find that there are probably a lot of people that are similar, especially those of us that are parents and that want to do right by our kids. My husband and I don't buy each other Christmas gifts, not because we don't love each other, but because we're more concerned about making magic for the kids happen. And that's just kind of, it's the old story. Your mom wore the same ratted blue jeans for 7 years while you got brand new clothes every season, and I find myself leaning that way as well. But unfortunately for me, I watched the outcome of that in my mom a little too up close and personal, and she didn't take care of herself, and she put us and everybody else before herself. And in the end, it didn't serve her and it took her away from us. I have to fully invest in myself now. And the only way that I trusted that I could do that and not back out was to purchase a full year package.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people are like you, and I think a lot of people are scared. They're scared because they've done everything in the kitchen sink and failed. So why would they invest a full year? Your story is just so deep and it's so profound. I remember your story. I remember meeting you and your husband in Vegas. I remember first seeing your before and afters after your first 12 weeks. I remember seeing your before and afters after 24 weeks. I remember seeing them at 48 weeks. I remember the romper story. Was it the romper or the dress? The black dress? And you wore the heels?
The black dress.
You went on a date night. You're like, I never wear something like this. And you felt confident to buy that. I remember that story. I remember just recently when I got the message from you in Messenger saying, hey guys, I have something to confess. I remember that. I mean, I remember your story like it was part of my own. So I'm going to ask you the one thing that I end all of these with. From somebody who's done everything out there. From somebody who has failed more times than she can count. From somebody who trusted in a program and then felt herself backslide and then came back. from somebody who wasn't necessarily in the best financial position to invest in a year, both times, betting on the only person that matters, herself, because I hate the phrase, I would die for my kids. Okay, how about you live for your kids instead? For those people that are on the fence, that are you, because I promise you, Amanda, there are more people that are going to watch this that are like you than you'll ever believe. What would you tell them if they're concerned, if they're curious, if they're on the fence?
I think there are two main reasons that so much of what is out there fails for most people. The first being, obviously, they're radical. They're things that want you to lose 20 pounds in 6 weeks. They want you to, cut an entire food group out of your diet. They want you to only eat broccoli and chicken. They're not sustainable. But I think the other reason that they fail is that most of them lack adequate support. Weight loss and health and fitness, especially for those of us in bigger bodies who have had to work harder at our fitness for most of our lives, there is an element of guilt and shame and secrecy. We become convinced that we have to do these things on our own, and we get embarrassed to ask people for help or accountability or support. I don't think there are many journeys in this life that were intended to be gone alone. And I very much am of the belief that your health, your wellness, your fitness, your weight management, however you want to look at it, is a journey that requires support. And I think that having, Afton in my pocket and you and Jen always reachable, an incredible community in the NBS group. Ashley and I, for a while, were just like messaging each other in Facebook Messenger, and we're like, hey, what exercise are you doing? Because we were in the same space mentally. And there is something about the recognition that somebody is there with you and is willing to help you figure things out when you feel overwhelmed and overworked and overstressed. That to me is the second big piece of this, and why I would come back to NBS every time, why it's 100% worth the financial commitment. Even when I did Weight Watchers, where you have a community, I wasn't texting my Weight Watchers leader at 7:00 on a Tuesday evening going, oh man, I'm out of points for the day. What am I going to do? Like, it was just like, okay, figure it out. Nothing has had this kind of support. And I think that that's the key piece. Often, and you guys have always encouraged me not just to take care of my physical health, but my mental health, to take care of myself, not just as a person, but as a mom, a wife. You treat me as a whole person, not just another account, not just another number on the scale or statistic or whatever that may be. I think that's why it works, because it's easier to invest in yourself when others are investing in you too.
And Amanda, more than ever, we are absolutely invested. We'll invest in our members as much as they're invested in themselves. So Amanda, I don't want to take any more of your time. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop the recording. I'm going to steal you for 2 seconds. Nutrition builds strength. Keep an eye out for, we're going to do a macro blueprint wait list. Give me till the end of next week. We're going to try to do one in about 6 weeks. We had so many people that wanted to join. We didn't have enough spots. I promise you it's coming. For those new members that are here, welcome. Go use the macro calculator. If you don't want to do this on your own, do me a favor, fill out a client discovery form, get on our calendar. I promise you, there's nothing to be scared of. We don't bite. We chat with you for a minute. We show you about the program, and it's up to you.